Welcome back to Surviving and Thriving, where we share with you the things that we have learned as we have transitioned our family from struggling to survive disease to thriving right smack dab in the midst of it, in the hopes that something that we share with you will help you, enlighten you, and encourage you as you transition your family from struggling to survive disease to thriving right smack dab in the midst of it. Our world, you guys, is changing and has changed. It has changed a lot. We can't go into stores without wearing masks nowadays. They don't know if children are going to go back to school or not. And we're experiencing all of this even while going through health issues. And healthcare has changed. Whether you can see a doctor or not see a doctor, whether you can have a loved one in the hospital with you or not have a loved one in the hospital with you. Things have changed, but even though they have changed, they are still changing, and we know not what tomorrow is going to look like. We're in a time of uncertainty, a time of unsteadiness. But even though the world is unsteady, you need to be steady in your household. You need to be steady and stable in your life. That sounds kind of crazy. Like, how am I supposed to be stable in an unstable world, right? You can be stable in an unstable world. Today, I want to talk to you about success. Because the world is changing and has changed all at the same time, what we once knew as success has to be redefined. It is so important that in this time, that when you're thinking about success for your life, success for your family, success for your health, that you set the parameters for what is success. Who cares what anybody else's household say is success? Who cares what the world and your culture that you're living in say success is? Success is based upon what your goals are and what you deem to be success. One thing I think is really important to know, well, before I say that, hopefully I remember to say that again, but when you're talking about success and you're trying to figure out what is success in your life, you have to have priorities. Priorities is what's going to help you to figure out where to set your sights for success. And everybody's priorities are going to be different. I'm going to tell you, there were seasons where I was in long years, long seasons, a serious fight, serious battle for my life, serious suffering. And for us at that time, success was keeping me alive. Yeah, I was struggling. Yeah, things was going hard. It was it was a tough time. It's something that I would never want to relive and I wouldn't wish on anyone else. But for us, the success was that I was still alive. Yeah, it was a lot of doom. Yeah, it was a lot of gloom. Things were not happy. It was not a good time, but I was still alive. And so it was a successful time, even though we might have been misplaced at times, even though we might not have had the things that we needed at times, even though food was scarce at times, we were still very successful because the goal was to keep me alive. Okay, so other people might have looked down on us during those times when we were struggling. People didn't understand the decisions that we were making. We got laughed at, we got talked about behind our back and in our face, right? But we were successful because I was still alive. We didn't care about the house we lived in. We didn't care about the car we drive or the clothes that we wore. Or even, I cared about my kids being able to eat, but they might not have been able to eat what they wanted to eat. I had a daughter, every time she saw rice, she started crying. And to this day, she's not a fan of rice because of that. But we were successful. They ate and I stayed alive, right? So success for everyone has to be defined by each individual, each family, each household. And don't look at anyone else. Now, the other thing I want to add to that is success is not perfection. It is not perfection at all. Sometimes, especially in the Western culture, we think that if you're perfect in what you do, perfect in attaining your goal, that means success. Perfect in attaining your goal is not success. Being perfect is not success. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You ready? Don't tell nobody I told you this. There's no such thing as a perfect person. The only perfect person who walked this earth was Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you, they crucified him. So I'm sure, you might want to be a little bit flawed, because if he was perfect, you'd be like Jesus and get crucified. He's the only perfect person. So striving for perfection should not be your goal. Striving to do things right should not be your goal. Because I'm going to tell you now, you're going to make a lot of mistakes trying to get to where you're trying to get to, because you're stepping into unknown territory, right? So you're going to make mistakes. It's not going to look great. It's not going to be perfect. So that should not be what your goal is. I'm going to tell you something. 20 years ago, when my family started, my husband and I, we were the family. We didn't have kids at that time. And we started going to our church. We were newlyweds, just got married, and decided to look for a church. And we settled on the church that we still are members of and attend. Well, I attend online because I'm not able to go, but still are members of and attend online now, right? My pastor used to say something all the time. It seemed like he was saying it right at me every time, and I would get so mad. And this is what he would say. He said, you can get straight A's as a student. You can get straight A's as a career person. You can get straight A's as a mother, a father, as a parent. You can excel and exceed in every area of life that you want to exceed in. Now I'm Tammyizing it, right? He said, but you can't excel in all of them at the same time. And that used to make me mad, because I'm like, why not? I think I should be able to do it. And, I went up against it and bumped my head against it. And eventually I was like, you know what, Pastor, you was right. He would say that you would have to determine what you cannot live without getting an A in. That's your number one priority. And then you have to say, okay, well, I can live with getting a B in this, a C in that, right? So if I want to be a super career woman, I may be a super career woman, but I might not be the best domestic person at home. I might not be able to put the food on the table and clean my house and be the mother that I want to be, because my priority and most of my time is going to that career, right? I know it's going to upset some of y'all. I know it used to upset me too, right? And at the time that he was saying that, I was married with my husband and we didn't have any children. And I was going to school, and at that time I did work. And I thought that I could do it all. And it was easier to be able to do it all. I was doing good in school. Work was a priority. The house, I was making my way through it. But it was just me and my husband, so it wasn't like it was that hard to maintain. But as the baby started coming, when the first baby came, that was hard. That was really hard, trying to figure out how to juggle a baby, maintain the home, because now the house was getting dirty, and try to take care of her and do all the gardening and things that I used to do while still maintaining the A's that I was getting at school, still doing all the things. I wasn't working at this time, but still trying to be the best in all of that. And one thing I learned is that if I focused in on school, my house was a mess. If I focused in on my family life, spending time with my husband, being the mother that I wanted to be, my grades dropped. And so I was learning what my pastor said is true, right? I had to choose what could I live with not being the best in and maybe getting a B in. And I found out that I had to learn how to live with getting a B. It didn't settle well with me, but maybe not getting all A's in school and getting A's at being at home. That was a real hard lesson for me to learn. So maybe that might help you, right? To realize that you have to decide what is your priorities, what can you not live with not doing your best in? Is it parenting? Is it your marriage? Is it your family? Is it your career? Is it your ability to provide? And you have to go through and sit down and label things. I'm gonna give this C level attention. I'm gonna give this B level attention. I'm gonna give this A level attention. Now, remember I was telling you that perfection is not success. I remember I was getting all A's in college, right? And I would be the top in my class in everything. And so a lot of times teachers had to grade me one way, right? Give me my A, because I just wasn't missing anything. I might miss one on a test every now and again. And I was just excelling in everything, but I was putting in the work. And everyone else, they would have to put them grade them on a curve on a different scale, because if they put me in there, everyone else would fail. And that felt great. Really enjoyed that, right? But I had a class that kicked my butt. I took this particular math class, and the first day of school, the teacher came in and was like, okay, pull your assignments out and let's correct your assignments. And I was like, it's the first day of school. I just got my book. What assignment? You mean I had to do some homework before school even started? So I started behind. And this particular teacher didn't really teach. He expected you to read the book, learn how to do the stuff. He just came in and went over everything and then asked if you had a question. And if you had a question, he didn't break it down to you. He just worked the problem on the board and said, okay, there's your answer. Okay, now let's move on. I remember his name and everything, but he was not there really teaching. It was basically, and he moved very quickly through stuff. And it kicked my butt. I struggled with it. I literally spent 4 hours a day studying for this class. I got tutorials. I went to the math labs. I did everything possible. I'd have to stop and take a bath because I'd be so stressed out, get up and get back on studying this class. And I worked my butt off in that class. And you guys, I got a C. Someone else will look at that and say you weren't successful. You got all these A's over here, and here you got a C. You weren't successful, right? Most people look at C's and say you just did enough to pass, and don't think that that is excelling. But I'm gonna tell you, the best grade that I've ever got in my entire life was that C in that math class. I'm so proud to this day of that C in that math class, because I worked my butt off. I put in everything that I had, and I did the best that I could, and it stretched me, and I did all that I could to reach that stretching, and I got a C. That is better to me than all them A's, than kicking everybody's butt in the classroom, right? Than all that other stuff. That C. Now, was that perfection for somebody else? It might not have been, but for me, I was successful. That was darn near perfection for me. That's better than any A I could have ever have gotten and that I ever had gotten, right? So when you're looking at what is successful, it's not perfection. It is the goals that you set and you striving to reach and attain those goals, okay? So even in your health, it may not always look like how you want it to look like, but it's the striving, the effort that you put in to stretch yourself to reach towards what you're desiring to attain. Here's another secret about success. Sometimes you are very successful and you don't even know it. You can't even see it because you're in the middle of all the muck and mire, and you getting dirty, right? And sweaty and stanky because you're doing the work that is required, right? But in hindsight, when you look back, sometimes you can look back and say, wow, look what we did. Sometimes you get to see what you did later in life. You get to see the benefits of it. You get to reap the reward for all your hard work, right? That's why the Bible says your children will rise up and call you blessed. I know as a parent, y'all half the time I don't know what I'm doing, right? And they bring stuff to you and both of them right and both of them wrong. And you don't know how to figure out, especially if you're not doing well, and you got to figure out between a whole bunch of mess that should have never got this high anyway, right? Sometimes I mess up big time, and I find myself having to apologize a lot and feeling bad, not knowing if I'm doing the right things, getting hit with stuff where you're like, how am I supposed to figure out how to do this, right? And so I don't always feel like the greatest of parent, but I know when I see certain things, I'm doing a good job. When I get to look out and see, oh, you know what? All that work we were putting in, it's working for us. I know all these years of homeschooling, I just didn't feel like I was doing a good job. But then when your kids at 15-year-olds start college, you realize you were doing a good job all that time that I felt like a failure, right? And when they took their entrance exam, I mean, they nailed them. They scored very high on them. So it was like, wow. So all that time it was working for me. So sometimes you're not going to feel like you're nailing it. But in hindsight, when you get to look back and you get to reflect, you'll see that you were successful. And sometimes you'll get glimpses, things will happen that'll let you know that you're hitting your mark and that you're doing good. But redefine success in your life right now. And no one else can tell you what is success for you, because this world is changing, right? So you set your mind on your targets, You go for your goals. In this unstable world, you be stable, diligent, and persevere in what you have to do. I hope something in there was helpful for you. Remember, in all things, at all times, do you, be you. Until next time. Bye.